A busy little town, Kauai's main city and county seat is no stranger to interesting activity. On this episode of Hawaii's Most Haunted, we bring to you the little town of Lihue on the quiet island of Kauai. Beyond the cool waters and trade winds of our idealistic paradise is the thin veil which separates our world from the place where the shadows talk back. Welcome to Hawaii's Most Haunted. Mo'o are often referred to as lizard beings or dragons, but according to our oral traditions, mo'o are shapeshifters. In some tales, one may find the abode of the mo'o near a body of water. In our mo'olelo, our stories, most mo'o are female deities. They take on the form of a beautiful woman who takes a male companion as a lover or as a meal. In both cases, the man ends up dead. Mo'o deities are benevolent to those families who revere them as aumakua. In return, the mo'o deity sees to the succession of their mo'oku auhau, or genealogy. If they guard a fish pond, they see to its harvest and that its waters are clear and nurturing. To dishonor a mo'o deity and break its kapu means disaster. This is symbolic of the reciprocal laws between man and nature. As we take care of our surroundings and all that are in it, so too will it take care of us. When foliage surrounding a pond or waterfall is lush and green, the mo'o is absent. It is then that it is safe to fish or swim. However, when the grasses at the water shore take on a greenish-yellow hue, the mo'o is home. Beware, maka'ala, akahele, and do not swim. There is another indicator of the mo'o's presence. Be watchful for a leaf that floats on the waters. That signifies the mo'o's absence. If the leaf sinks, the mo'o is home, and you should make yourself scarce. Years ago, before the landowner put up fences and boulders to block access to this dangerous place, a local teenager and his friends decided to cool off on a hot day and made their way to a local waterfall and swimming hole just outside of Lihue. It was a favorite after-school spot. While friends were sitting at the top of the falls and others were playing on a rope that swung over the pond, this young man was sitting at the shore of the pond and decided to swim back to the rocks to climb out. He said swimming across was easier than trying to make his way around the pond, through the trees, and over the large boulders. The young man was a strong swimmer who grew up around the water and was familiar with the falls. But he said he got into trouble about halfway across. The young man suddenly went underwater and was unable to come back up. Thrashing and struggling to swim to the surface for air, he couldn't hold his breath much longer. He can't explain it, but he swore that someone or something was holding his ankles. The more he struggled, the tighter the grip became. The young man was getting weaker, and his lungs felt like they were going to burst. Then, just as he was about to give up, he thought, "I'm sorry." The moment the thought entered his mind, whatever it was that was holding him, let go. When he was asked what he apologized for, he said he really didn't know. He was partly saying sorry to his mom for all the things he'd done. He was sorry for not being a better student and a better person. And he was sorry for being in that place when he knew he shouldn't have been. "I should have listened to my mom," he said. Whether you believe it was a mo'o after young men, exhaustion or cramps from swimming, or an undertow from the falls, please know that so many people have been injured and too many have died for the thrill of playing in that secluded spot just off the beaten path. It's called Kippu Falls. In Niumalu, there is a dam built across a large bend in the Huleia River. It is a 900-yard-long dirt levee faced with stone. It is said that the rocks used for the facing came from the plains of Wahiawa near Hanapepe and were passed hand over hand by the Menehune. One night, two young men decide that they want to test out their brand new paintball guns. They drove out to a quiet road and parked their car at a lookout. The boys get out of their vehicle and start shooting paintballs at the sign when suddenly, after only a few seconds, the seal on the older brother's gun breaks. He sits in his car and attempts to fix the seal. The younger brother turns back to the sign and begins to fire his paintballs, when only after a few shots, the seal on his gun also bursts. He also gets back into the car to attempt to repair his gun. In the passenger seat, the younger brother looks up and sees, in front of the car, coming toward them, a Hawaiian woman dressed in white with long, long black flowing hair behind her. He begins to freak out and he starts hitting his brother's arm, but the older brother is focusing on fixing his paintball gun. He's not paying attention. The Hawaiian woman doesn't stop. She keeps coming closer and closer to the vehicle. Finally, the younger brother yells, "Hoi!" And the older brother looks up and says, "What?" Then he looks in front of him, and the ghost of this woman is coming right up to the car, right through the hood. She's about to approach the windshield of the car, and the two brothers are screaming bloody murder. The older brother finally gets the key into the ignition, and it's taking a while to turn over. The brothers are screaming, and as soon as the woman gets close enough, and it seems as if she's going to come right through the windshield, the car starts, and they take off into the night. This happened at a place called Haleko. You might know it better as the Menehune fish pond. Haleko Road in Lihue is barely more than a half a mile and is a quick shortcut from Rice Street to the Kukui Grove area. Many locals just called it the Mill Road because at the bottom of the gulch used to be the old Lihue sugar mill. There's even an old graveyard down there. People will tell you that the road is haunted, and some even refuse to travel that curvy stretch of road at night. At the front of this road, on the corner of Rice Street, lies a little complex called the Haleko Shops. The buildings were erected around the turn of the 20th century as homes for German plantation supervisors and their families. In 1972, Mayor Anton Vidina was running for re-election and set up his headquarters in one of those buildings. After only a couple of weeks, several friends informed Vidina that the building was haunted by ghosts. Not wanting anything to do with the subject of ghosts, Vidina announced that he would be moving his headquarters elsewhere. When questioned, Vidina said that his concern was for his campaign workers. Those poor people would be sitting in those offices, looking at the ceiling, just waiting for the footsteps overhead. And then they'd all be gone. I'd lose all my volunteer workers. That wouldn't be good. It's no good having spooks around. Former tenants of the building admitted that they'd never actually seen the ghost, but heard the heavy footsteps that regularly walked around upstairs. When news spread that the mayor decided to move his headquarters, another former tenant came forward to reveal that the parking lot behind the buildings was once part of the old graveyard. The mayor's administrative assistant added that not only did the building they were in harbor a ghost, but the entire complex was haunted. The Vidina camp moved out of the building and into another office on Oihana Street, all the way across town. But the relocation meant a whole month without a base of operations, and Vidina lost the election by only about 150 votes. A year later, in 1973, the owner of a new restaurant, Casa de Grillo, moved into the space that several people have claimed was haunted. While the owner, Tony Grillo, stated that the sounds of footsteps above him after the restaurant has closed and he's there alone doesn't bother him. He does find it interesting. He did state that other things had been happening as well. In one instance, he was cooking a pot of spaghetti on the gas range. He turned away from the stove to cut some cheese, and when he turned back, The gas had been turned off. I know there was no one else near the stove, Griot said. Now, tell me if that ain't strange.